Hi, everybody. It's Sheryl from Tutoring with Sheryl and the Tech Coach for Tutors. And tonight I have two very special guests that have agreed to join me for a casual conversation about the effectiveness of online tutoring. I think there's this negative bias about it, and we want to uncover the truths behind it. And so I'm very happy to introduce two really high quality tutors. And since Sharon joined the meeting first, I'm going to have her introduce herself first. But let me just really quickly introduce myself so that if this is your first time here, you know who your three hosts are. So my name is Sheryl Uehling. Again, I run Tutoring with Sheryl and the Tech Coach for Tutors. My students that I work with are kindergarten through 6th or 7th grade, and I really tailor my lessons to supporting students that are struggling in reading and writing. And we work on spelling and some other things as well, but my main goal is to get them to be proficient readers and writers so that they're not struggling in the classroom. And then I also coach tutors on the side with their tech. So Sharon, I'm going to hand the reins over to you, and I'd like you to take a second to introduce yourself as well.
Thank you. I'm Sharon Ingram. I live in Lowell, Massachusetts, and I am strictly an online tutor. What I mostly tutor is Hebrew reading for kids between about 3rd and 8th grade. The interesting thing is that reading Hebrew is almost easier than reading English, which tends to surprise people, but it is true. I also tutor people who are interested in a complete package of Jewish education. I don't advertise that, but I get that request. So there are many parents who don't belong to a synagogue or live outside an area, and their children have no background whatsoever, no culture, no holidays, no Hebrew, no familiarity with the prayer book. And in addition, sometimes the parents ask me to tutor them to learn Hebrew if they never had it. I don't regret for a second switching to online tutoring. I was a classroom teacher. I was disappointed both in the curriculum that we were forced to do, not what students needed, and often in the behavior, which neither the school nor the parents were interested in. In online tutoring, I get their attention and their focus, and they do wonderfully.
Awesome. We'll dive more into that in just a second. That was a great introduction. Thank you, Sharon. And then Susan, would you take a second to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. I'm Susan Grimes. My business is Tutoring with Miss Susan, LLC. I am located outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I specialize in tutoring children in reading, writing, and math for children in preschool through 3rd grade. And
Awesome.
I really, really enjoy it. I used to teach pre-K and a kindergarten prep class beforehand. But to make a long story short, the advancement opportunities were not presenting itself. So I created my own advancement and started my own tutoring business, which I love. Online tutoring is amazing. I wouldn't change it for anything.
I love that. And so the three of us, we were all in the classroom. We all taught. I retired from teaching just a few years ago, and I was just like you. Like, okay, I still wanted to actually be in the classroom, but I just couldn't show up the way that I had been able to do. And I knew that I could still have an impact with students. And so I actually started out as an in-person tutor going to people's homes, and then quickly realized that that was not sustainable for myself. I'm in a very rural area, and you might even hear my dogs. They're right on cue to be barking right as I'm talking to people. So I'm feeling right at home on the farm. So sorry about that. But anyway, I'm going to move forward, and we're going to talk about maybe the ease and the convenience of online tutoring, and maybe talk a little bit more about what that looks like for both you and for your students. Sharon, would you like to start there? And I'm going to mute myself so we don't hear those dogs barking.
Sure. One of the things that's very helpful right now is, unfortunately, during the pandemic, a lot of families became very used to doing online sessions. So many of them are Zoom literate, or we're on Meet literate, or some of the other platforms, and that's helpful right away. So not only do they know how to log into these things, but they often have some of the technology they need to look good. But even if they don't, the important thing is that they see me clearly, and that my communications are as clear as possible, and that I hear them. I would say that the majority of the students I have feel like we're together, because it's just the two of us. It's a back and forth conversation. They're not competing with kids who are making noise around them. And so we build a relationship just by being face to face. And I just love that. And the students also know that I'm interested in them. So if they want to take a second and tell me what happened in their school day or a concert they did this week or a movie without a lot of detail that they saw, go ahead. And it makes us feel even more connected. And that's among the things I love. But I'll tell you a quick story, and that's that I met in person some students from California about a month ago. And the first thing they said was, "It's so nice seeing you in 3D." And
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
I love that. I love that. Susan, why don't you address this idea of connecting and working with students online and what that looks like for you and for your students?
Sure. So when I first started my online tutoring business, I actually had a couple students from the childcare center where I worked. So it was like an easy way in. I advertised on all the social media, so the parents, found me easily. And from there, I kind of just built it slowly. Whereas I made a Google profile page. A lot of people have been finding me through Google as well. And the other social media platforms such as TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, those have been the top social media platforms. And I love it because of the parents love the flexibility. The children that I have are smaller, and so life happens. They're involved in so many sports or activities. And sometimes, can you push it, earlier or the next day? And that's where they're like, thank goodness you can, because it makes life easier when you do it online. They're comfort out of their own home. They can go to the bathroom, have a snack, get a quick drink, and it's less distraction. And they're, like I said, they're in a comfortable space that they know, and you don't have to worry about extra noise.
I would agree with that, because when I was meeting with my families in person, we had lots of distractions. But as soon as I switched over to using the computer, it was like the kids were just zoned in, and I kept them busy enough that they couldn't just wander off and go do anything. And not that I wasn't doing that in person. It was just a different approach. And I think they liked the challenge of it as well, because it is maybe just a little bit more challenging sometimes just to click around. But it's also, I think we also have to face the facts that these kids are growing up in a digital world. And so along the way, I get the opportunity, at least for the students that I support, to help them with their digital literacy skills as well. So when we're crafting stories, we're maybe using shared documents. And then most recently, all of my older students have been putting together a portfolio. And so we're using Canva to do that. And so they're able to go in and, change the background and use different fonts and figure out, do a search for the right kind of picture in a very safe environment, because Canva's not going to pull up, anything crazy. And so I think it's just been a real eye opener for my families, and the digital tools that are out there are really amazing. And the AI tools that I'm finding to make my workload a lot easier are just enhancing my students' experiences. So would either one of you like to talk about any of the tools that you're using, or provide an example of an experience your students have had?
One thing I can address is, especially with kids with attentional issues, the ability, whether it's Zoom or Meet or any of them, to switch up gears. I often have videos or activities ready to go if I'm going to need them. So if I see attention slipping, for example, at a click, I can just go to one of these other activities and keep their attention. And as you said, it's a digital age. Kids are glued to their screens already. And so you're utilizing something that they already are into. And I find, again, for the ADD kids, and I know that parents are concerned, you hold their attention, in fact, only by being one-on-one, right, to start with, but because you can constantly switch it up, and that's what they need. And so that's one thing that I enjoy a lot. I have used tools like Canva, but also I use WordWall. I do use the free version, but I'm able to make puzzles and spinning wheels and all kinds of things with words and reading. And that's just one tool that I use.
Yeah.
So I tend to go hunting for game things or creation things.
Yeah, I think the kids are really, I always do the games at the end. do the lesson, say, okay, as soon as we're done, we have a game. And that's very motivating for the students. Susan, what would you like to share about experiences that your students have had, tools that you use?
Sure. So I use Zoom for my main platform. And how I like to differentiate myself from other tutors is that for the most part, I do use a lot of physical materials. So I'll use flashcards. I will use a lot of visuals and so forth. And I also use my handy dandy light that I can also shine on. So to make words bigger and stories like for guided reading, or if I'm using a whiteboard so they could see clearly on how to write the letters, things like that. But the older kids, I do like to sometimes give them different like practice problems on the computer, and they think it's so cool to write that I can share my screen that they can write on it. Like they think they're, super cool and like such big kids to do that. So that also gets their attention as well. And just like switching up the activities. I can tell when like a child's kind of like, okay, I'm over it. Like, let's move to something else. And like you said earlier, Sharon, having a rapport with the children, talking about like, how was your day? How's your week going? What do you have plans for the weekend? Having that connection also makes a huge difference as well, because then they can trust me and it boosts their confidence as well.
Yeah, I love that. Sharon, when you said that you'd met students, I actually had some students come and visit me out at our farm. And so they got to see our big equipment and they got to walk around and meet our dogs that were just barking a little bit ago. And, just kind of be immersed in it. And so that is a really cool thing. And then sometimes my more local students, so the students that came to my farm actually live in New York, but my more local students, and when I say local, I'm talking like 25 miles from my house. Okay, that's about as local as I get. I might go to one of the larger towns and see them, and they're just like, Sheryl, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. And their parents are like, oh my gosh, and just making those connections, seeing them in town, making their birthday special, asking them, did you make the team? Because some of my older students are trying out for, teams, travel teams. And when I remember it, they get really excited. And then I'm like, just tell me when you're playing somewhere. And if it works out my schedule, I'll come see you. I have yet to have it work out, but I would really just love to go and support them. And they know that I have a high interest in them as well. I was thinking of something else that parents might be wondering about, and it might be scheduling with each one of you. I'll talk about it last, but Sharon, how does that look for parents to, schedule with you? What does that process look like for you?
It's fairly easy. I've used Calendly sometimes for that. I'm looking into the Tutor Bird services because they also make it easy for parents to schedule. My load for the last couple of years has only been maybe 7 or 8 students a week, but I like parents to pick a time that's good for both of us, of course, and I do my best to always stick to it, even if they have to change what they're doing, because I think that the tutor has to be the most consistent person. But I do want to quickly address the learning area, because you talked about the quiet of the tutoring versus things like the classroom or in person. I actually have a problem sometimes where parents will set up their kids in the kitchen and everyone's talking around them, which drowns out the student. And if parents don't fix that after a couple of sessions, I ask them if they really want to keep tutoring, because it doesn't work if they don't provide the right environment. And I think that's important for us as online tutors to be willing to talk to families about.
Yeah, and I mean, just to let them know that it's getting in the way of what their child is learning. And maybe the kid can hear you just fine, but their computer is just bringing in all that noise that you can't even concentrate. And I think parents appreciate that. I especially the honesty and being open about that, for sure. Susan, your thoughts?
So for me, what I do is once a parent is interested in my tutoring services, I have a consultation with them. And that's part of the consultation. We talk about where will the child do their tutoring. And I always say, I'm not super picky, but I recommend a table. That way they to write. Sometimes you don't want them just like sitting on the couch or a bed. I tried that, doesn't work. We do say, comfortable at home, but also like at a table somewhere, that sort of thing. So I kind of like nip that in the bud right in the beginning. And if there is like extra noise, usually the parents are aware and like will apologize like before or after. But when somebody usually finds out about my services, they can, book through my Calendly link from my website. Otherwise, once we usually schedule a time over the phone, usually stick to that time. In the summer, obviously it's kind of crazy, but like I'm old school, so I just like write everything in a planner. So I can like have it out and I can just, open up and see like, okay, what times do I have written down and, what's available. But I always say I'm very flexible. If you need like an early morning or even a Saturday, like if for some reason they have, something going on during the week, I'd say, hey, Saturday morning would work. Would that work for you? So I try to be, like I said earlier, as flexible as possible, especially because I know that they have, are involved, their kids are involved in sports activities and they have siblings that could be involved as well.
Yep, I agree with you. I do a lot of the same things that you also do. I ask my parents to contact me through my contact form. They can direct message me. They can call me. When people find me on Google Maps, they just get my phone number. They can email me, however they want to get in touch with me. If they're on my website, I have a Meet the Tutor button, and then they can schedule. I have a couple of those per week where I just schedule just a half-hour free lesson. It's a free trial lesson. I typically say I'm going to talk to the parents, I'm going to talk to the child, and then if I know what the problem is in advance, I might do a really short assessment to say, this is what I noticed. Let me know if you'd like to work with me. Well, if they've already filled that out, if they've already done the Meet the Tutor, they want to work with me because they probably have already found me on social media because I've got stuff all over the place. And so just being visible that way has increased my, I guess, the need for me. And so I'm solidly booked right now. I can add more, but it would be Saturday morning, or later in the evening. But yeah, I mean, there's some days where I'm tutoring for 4.5, 5 hours. So I'm staying very, very busy. And I have to credit that to the marketing that I did this spring to really push for summer tutoring. And it's really helping a lot of kids. And who knows, some of these kids that just joined me this summer, they may or may not decide to stay with me in the fall. It really depends because some of them are working on short-term goals. But the kids that are, have their IEPs or their 504 plans, they usually stick with me for several years before they just kind of outgrow my services. Okay, so let's think. We've talked about who we are, who we serve, how we onboard parents, that we all probably are doing the same things as far as assessments. And I don't know that I necessarily mentioned that here, but I do an assessment. How parents can get a hold of us. What am I missing that we need to be chatting about? Because this is really to inform the parents on the ease and the flexibility of online tutoring. What are we missing?
I think that one of the things parents have to realize is that they are always in the picture, that they are included in how the students are doing, what the students are doing, and that you ask the parents questions from time to time about, is there anything else that you think they'd like to learn about? Or is there anything you would like me to talk to them about or teach them about that isn't just part of the exact kind of reading exercises we're doing? And I think that ongoing parent communication is essential to making families confident in what's happening and willing to recommend you or give you endorsements on your sites.
Amazing. I didn't even think about that. And when you said communication, and Susan, you might want to address that as well. Just being at the end of every lesson, I send home an email, and I do that all through Tutorbird because it's really easy. It just pops up on my calendar. I take attendance, and then I send a quick note, and that's my running record. And that's how I can so quickly have my lesson plan done, because I say at the next lesson, or I might put a note in for myself, next lesson we'll be working on this, and then boom, I'm just ready to go for the next one. Susan, I mentioned communication. Did you want to talk about that or anything that I've forgotten?
Sure. So with because my students are young, after every session, I talk to the parents for at least a couple minutes just to kind of say what we did, what we reviewed. And during the school year, I always say, like, do they have any homework? Because I also offer homework help, and that's a huge blessing for the parents, because the parents are just like, I'm done. I can't do the homework. They're giving me a hard time. Like, here, I'll scan it for you. And then we'll share the screen and we'll do the homework together as well. So that's like a relief for the parents. But like I said earlier, having rapport with the student, it's also just as important as having a rapport with the parents, because those are the ones that will, give you recommendations, write reviews, that kind of thing. So you want to be as, friendly as possible, especially this is an isolating job. We're not in the schools. We're not, in a building where there's lots of people to talk to. So it's also nice to, have, just kind of like a relaxed, quick conversation. Especially if they live in the neighborhood, like, oh, what place did you go? This, that, and the other. So that, communication is key for the parents as well, definitely.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Okay, so I don't want this to go on forever, but I feel like I might be missing something. We kind of chatted before we started, and we just wanted the conversation to just flow naturally. And I don't want to cut the conversation short if there's something really on your mind that you want to share, because what we will be doing in a minute as we wrap things up is sharing how parents can find us. But before we get there, is there anything that I've missed? Oh, I can think of one thing: fall. Because fall is right around the corner. And I'm quite certain that if you're like me, you're thinking, oh, are my students going to stay with me? And, how many of my students are going to, unenroll because they met their goal, kind of like what I talked about before. And so, what does your fall look like? What does fall look like for both of you for
My
enrollment?
my fall is quiet right now, but I need to keep it that way at the moment. But I'm anticipating looking more at October and November. The good thing about that, though, is that Hebrew school typically starts up in September. And then by the time the Jewish high holidays come at the end of September, the parents know if their kids are having a hard time in Hebrew school, and that's a good recruiting time.
Susan.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that the children that took a break for the summer should be returning next fall. So hopefully for the fall, I will be busier. There's only so many extra, after school hours, but I hope to have those children come back, and as well as those students that I've now, and the newer ones that I have for the summer, hopefully they will continue for the fall.
Yeah, and I think letting parents know that, you're available if they need to take a little break and then come back. I mean, that happened to me last year. I had a student who took a little bit of a break, and then in December they came back because they realized that they still needed the support. And then that student outgrew what I could help them with. And then I referred them on to a former student of mine that's a teacher that was working on the math skills that student actually needed. And, parents really appreciate that when you know of other qualified tutors that might be able to help them. And so I'm so glad that we have this opportunity to, chat about each one of us and who we are and what we do. And I think this would be a good time to kind of talk about where people can find you. Sharon, would you like to go first? And I know that you've kind of had some changes in things that are going on, and we might not have anything to physically share, but both of you will be sharing your links with me, and I will add those in the description. So Sharon, where could somebody who's looking to find you for services be able to locate you to contact you?
Right now, the best place is email and telephone, because my social media, I haven't needed as much of the social media because everybody's just been coming to me without me having to do outreach. But I will have you have that information in the description box, and people can reach me. And then keep your eyes out, because my social media, my webpage, and everything are coming in the next month or so.
Okay, awesome. And if I post this before you have that, I will always come back in and I will update and edit it. But I do know where your Facebook account is, so they could get the information off of your Facebook account as well. Okay, Susan, if you have a tab or something that you want to share, you can go ahead and take over the screen and tell us. Do you want me to go through that? Okay, you got it.
There we
Good
go.
job.
Got it. Got
Great.
it. So my website is tutoringwithmisssusan.com. Okay. And trying to figure out how to scroll down.
So if you go back into the tab itself, so go to the tab that you opened at the top, you should be able to scroll down it.
Let's see. So start over.
Yeah, we could start over, but so if you share it, and then go into the tab on your computer. So share it in the meeting and then go up to the top where it has the name.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
There we
and so,
go.
Yeah. And so just go, yep. Okay. Looks, oh yeah. Pull that down a little further because your contact information was up there. And somebody might want to see that again.
So there is my Calendly on here. And so you can book a 15-minute free phone conversation, and then we can go into the consultation after. We kind of like a quick meet and greet over the phone. I have my email address, and I am also on Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If you just click the links at the bottom, it's really easy. And I have my phone number and email as well.
Awesome. And then they can explore, your services, your pricing, your free resources,
Sure.
your blog.
Everything is on there. My picture is on there, and fill in, the form and so forth, and click any of the tabs. So yeah.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And I know how much work you put into that. That's a lot of work. You did great. And then
Thank
for those of you,
you.
you're welcome. For those of you that are looking to get in touch with me as a K through 6 and now 7th grade reading support, you can come to tutoringwithsheryl.tutorbird.com. And as you scroll down the page, you're going to see book and sign up. And I would encourage you to do the trial lesson with me. That's free of charge. And so when you click on that, it will take you to the calendar. You can see my availability. You can read how I service students. You can book and sign up a couple different ways on here. I've got some resources, contact. If you're the parent and you need to get into the portal, you can. And then, of course, I've got all kinds of things up at the top that you can explore. So I think we're going to wrap it up. But I want to thank you guys for we had to reschedule this a few times, and that was really on me. And so we are recording this late in the evening after a full day of tutoring. And I just want to thank you for taking time out to share your message and to let other people know the effectiveness of online tutoring, because our kids are making the grade. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.